Penelope is a good fairy tale. Maybe not Princess Bride great, but very watchable. So when my friend told me its Rotten Tomato score, my reaction was, yeah. So here I am, again, delving deeper to explain why a movie is better than the critics' scores claim. Let's do it. Penelope is a 2006 film that was written by Leslie Cavanagh and directed by Mark Palansky and is a modern adaptation of the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. Only this time, Beauty is played by James McAvoy and Beast, or Penelope, is Christina Ricci. Unlike other incarnations of this classic tale, Penelope didn't do anything to incur the wrath of anybody. Rather, her super-duper great-grandfather did when he knocked up the scullery maid and dumped her, driving the poor woman to suicide and her witchy mother towards revenge. So, until some highfalutin blue blood can accept Penelope as she is, she's stuck with the face she has, which is still really cute. But since in-world logic dictates she's not, reactions to her tend to be extreme, which confounded a lot of critics. Like, a lot. I, for one, don't mind because with her voiceover, it establishes a whimsical tongue-in-cheek tone to the film, especially after one of her suitors escapes an NDA signing to team up with a paparazzo named Lemon to expose her. Enter Max, a blue blood with a gambling problem who's been hired by the two to infiltrate the Wilhern Manor and take a picture of Penelope. Only the more time he spends with her, the more uncomfortable he gets with his part in their scheme. When his cover is blown, because of course it is, Penelope says she doesn't care. She wants to marry him anyway. And my goodness is this refreshing. Betrayal tropes are rampant in romances, be they written or visual. So to see it set up so beautifully only to be ignored...
Beautiful. Simply beautiful.
The subversion of expectation is so startling it almost overshadows Penelope begging Max to marry her.
Marry me.
Almost. When Max says he can't, Penelope deals with his rejection by running away and getting a life, starting with that ever-adult concern, money. Since credit cards are traceable, Penelope opts to sell her picture to Lemon, and this is where my love for Peter Dinklage began. Not that he wasn't entertaining in Elf and Death at a Funeral, both versions, but his parts in those didn't exactly run the gambit of emotions, whereas here we can see him turning into a three-dimensional character when Penelope snaps,
You care, you're getting your freak.
Hey, nobody said anything about a freak.
It's that subtle stutter and narrowing of the eye that communicates a twinge of self-doubt, one that evolves into a conscience when he finally gets what he wants and sees Penelope as a person. A significant turning point considering his actions towards her have been largely dehumanizing. For instance, hiding in her family's pantry to take a picture of her, coming to her funeral armed with a shovel, paying a man to trick her into a moment of intense vulnerability, all of which after having driven her parents into isolating her for over 20 years, significantly impacting her self-esteem to the point where she hides her ears with her hair in her own home. Not that Lemon would know, but we do. Now, is everything wrong with Penelope's life Lemon's fault? No, absolutely not. Her parents' reactions are theirs. But to be fair, some of them were in direct response to his, and as a dwarf, that's gotta sting. Knowing you've helped pariah a person for no other reason than their looks? Yikes. Fortunately, Penelope knows how to turn a problem into an opportunity as she seizes upon the mob of journalists to introduce herself to the public. Thus, when reactions to her go from to
I mean, I'm no Penelope, but...
to it's a believable transition. Maybe not the smoothest, but believable, as far as cursed faces go. And Lemon, more than anybody, embodies that, making the Avenant, or Gaston of the story, this douche nozzle. Edward Vanderman. He wants to expose Penelope, rip off her mask of anonymity, and get the court of public opinion to see her as he does. When they don't, he changes tactics to protect his family's social standing and profit margins. In short, he proposes. Not to Penelope directly, he's actually too smart for that. No, instead he goes to her parents to make the proposition, specifically her mother, who manipulates Penelope into saying yes, but not really because it's a fairy tale. Meaning Penelope finds self-acceptance, breaks the curse, and lives her best life, neither married to Edward nor Max. Which is where I think a lot of critics stumbled in their assessment of this film. That because it's a fairy tale, it's automatically going to be about two people falling in love, when it's not. Yes, Max and Penelope have some strong meet-cute chemistry, but once Max says he won't marry her, they spend the rest of the movie getting their lives in order. separately, which is a good thing because Max has a gambling problem and Penelope spent her entire life in a terrarium. Seriously, just look at the set design on this room and tell me I'm wrong. From the moss green paint highlighting the warm wood floors to the papier-mâché tree littered with stuffed birds surrounded by painted flowers and beautiful butterflies, this space mimics the outdoors because Penelope couldn't experience it. Not properly anyway. She wants to. Clearly she wants to. The only problem is her parents. The same parents who created this room in hopes that it would alleviate her desire to go outside, therefore keeping her inside. Safe. Which sounds good in theory, but even closed terrariums need fresh air every now and again to stave off mold. Fresh air, in this case being friends, and mold, all kinds of neuroses. Hence Annie. Annie is important to the story because she befriends Penelope, not for money or pity, but because she genuinely likes Penelope as a person. Enough to ruin her gas mileage on her moped anyway, and that's not nothing in a city like London. Or a magical American version of London? I don't know. But once Penelope's scarf falls off, we don't see much of Annie anymore. And this is a shame because it means the critics were right. Annie is an underdeveloped character. Her function in the story is just that, a function. She's only there to serve Penelope's arc, after which, nothing. The audience never sees her expressing any desires or needs of her own. Even her friendship with Penelope is developed during a montage rather than meaningful character interaction, which I can only assume Cavanagh and Polanski did for the expediency of ease and runtime. However, they could have killed 3 birds with one 7-minute stone had they shown Penelope crashing at Annie's. Picture it. They've been riding the moped. Penelope's still drunk. So Annie lets her sleep it off on her couch. They wake up, Annie says something about having to go to work, and Penelope asks why she does it. Annie reveals that Jack offered her a position at the pub, but she'd have to take a course first, one that costs money she doesn't have. So Penelope says she'll be her roommate. That way Annie has disposable income and Penelope a place to sleep. A quick cut to Jessica and Franklin with the postcards wondering how Penelope's affording anything. Cut back to Penelope getting an at-home haircut from Annie as she searches the wanted ads. Seeing Penelope's lack of experience, Annie helps Penelope zhuzh up her resume, maybe even suggesting she get her teaching credentials. Thus, we'd know where Penelope was staying, the symbiotic nature of the girls' friendship, and understand how the hell she got a job right after the curse without any experience.
You're crazy.
All while contributing to Annie's own character development and Penelope's self-actualization, seeing as before Annie, Penelope was well below where she should have been in her psychological needs. Kind of like Max. Speaking of, when Max first meets Penelope, he has no job, no friends, and no sense of purpose, whereas being around Penelope gives him a sense of all 3. A job from Lemon, a friend in her, and the desire to help. But by rejecting Penelope, Max loses all of these and returns to his terrarium of choice, the gambling den, where he wallows until he stops. With no help or outside pressure, Max gives up gambling. This is a significant step for any addict. Seeing the problem and doing something about it. Once Max leaves, he starts paying back Lemon what he feels he owes to Penelope, and gets a job. Maybe not the one he wants, but it's work. Work with an end goal to move away from the city and temptation. So by the time Penelope sees Max again, they've both gone through their own journeys. Penelope's being one of discovery, and Max's of recovery. And while critics complained about their separation, in doing so, they failed to see what the film actually did. It showed that not all women need to be rescued, and not all men need to be fixed, and vice versa. Think about it. Old school fairy tales often feature the idea that women locked in towers need men to rescue them, and men who are monsters can be changed if the woman just loves them hard enough. Hell, that's what the original Beauty and the Beast was all about. But Penelope eschews all that by showing Max quitting, not because Penelope asked him to, but because he wants to. Same with Penelope. She doesn't leave her house at Max's invitation.
Come on, you gotta get out of there sometime.
She goes because that's what she's always wanted to do. It's just now she has nothing left to lose. So by the end of the movie, they're actually way more emotionally stable than they were at the beginning, which is a very healthy way to enter into a relationship. So yeah, some of the shots are a tad melodramatic. Periphery characters are underdeveloped. But overall, it's a solid story with a fantastic cast, amazing set design, colorful costuming, all lending themselves incredibly well to tell this modern fairy tale. Also, I think it's just really cool that Penelope means with a web over her face, or weaver, and for a chunk of the film, Penelope just runs around with a fabric over her face.
Neat!